everybody, I'm Ryan from Fireside Yankees, and in today's video, we're talking about a mock trade for Shane Bieber. Now, if you guys aren't already aware, you guys can check out this mock trade and all of our other mock trades and social posts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok, all under the tag Fireside Yankees. On Instagram, it's fireside.yankees, so make sure you guys check us out and give us a follow. And with that being said, let's kind of break down this mock trade. Let's get right into it. Looking at what the Yankees are going to be giving up in this mock trade, they would be giving up Everson Pereira, who is, one of their better outfield prospects, a guy who's Major League ready or is close to Major League ready. Obviously, he struggled last year with making contact, and look, this is a guy who's very volatile. He's a guy who's also had some injury problems in the past, so there are a wide range of outcomes for him. This isn't necessarily a guy you look at and say, he is a sure thing at the Major League level, but he's certainly a talented player, and he certainly has got the skill set that Cleveland's looking for. Cleveland is a team that has a lot of contact already. Cleveland's a team that does an excellent job of putting the ball in play. Now they need guys who are going to be able to go out and do some damage and make some actual, extra base hits or go out and hit home runs or overall just be big power hitters and balance out the plethora of contact first guys they have. Not that contact isn't valuable, not that putting the ball in play can't be valuable, not that hitting for a high average can't be valuable, not that prioritizing getting on base can be valuable, but you need to have guys also who can drive in runners and can score runs for you efficiently. And while Pereira isn't a surefire thing, he is certainly the type of guy who lacks the skills that Cleveland develops really well. As mentioned earlier, Cleveland does an excellent job of developing hit tool. They get a lot of guys to, increase their contact rates or whatever it may be, or do a better job of generating contact. And personally, I think Pereira would be a great fit in Cleveland. Now, Edmanuel Tejada is a guy who has a lot of excellent plate skills. This is a guy who put up the highest WRC plus for any hitter in the Florida Complex League for the Yankees among qualified hitters. Walked about as much as he struck out. Has pretty good speed. He has a lot of the skills that are hard to teach for young hitters because he has excellent plate discipline, because he has an excellent feel for the strike zone, an excellent feel for contact, an excellent feel for just a lot of things that, most young players struggle with. He's going to be entering his age 19 season, will likely start out the season at Single A next year. This could be a guy who becomes a pretty solid player, at least at some point down the road. And personally, this is the guy that I think hurts the most to give up. He was born in 2004. He's actually younger than I am, which is pretty crazy. And ultimately, again, this is a guy who I think could be a really nice ball player. Stole 24 bases in 50 games. I believe he was second in the FCL in stolen bases behind his teammate, Kiner Delgado, who's another infielder in the organization. His game power wasn't excellent. He hit 5 home runs in 50 games, and you would like to see that number go up, but that's something you can teach. It's not like this is a guy who can't hit for power at all. The year prior, he had a 204 ISO. He slugged 493. And this past year, we're looking at a 465 on base percentage. That's certainly going to pop out to anybody. The big thing he needs to work on is getting the ball in the air a little bit more, kind of figuring out the way to balance his excellent feel for the strike zone, his excellent feel for contact, and also bring game power to the plate. And ultimately, I think this is a guy who can be, again, one of the better infield prospects in the Cleveland Guardians organization and potentially develop into more. This is a guy who obviously, if he develops into something big, would hurt the Yankees, and I understand that and recognize that risk. I'm not sitting here and saying this is a risk-averse deal, but at the same time, in order to get better, you oftentimes have to make moves that hurt you. And I think that this market is showing that you're not going to be able to get impact players without giving up impact pieces in the farm system. Teams are no longer interested in trading their best players for, prospects who likely won't pan out. I mean, the median outcome for a guy like Edmanuel Tejada, who, again, I have a pretty high grade on. Even Baseball Prospectus put them in their top 10 for the Yankee organization, but his median outcome isn't being a major league player. His median outcome is well below that, right? So we have to understand how median outcomes work, and when it comes to trading prospects, sometimes I am no better at this. Sometimes I overvalue, prospects in the organization, or I overvalue the impact of having, let's say, the 7th best prospect in the Yankee organization, or the 10th best prospect in the Yankee organization. And again, ultimately, the median outcome for these kinds of players just isn't full-time contributors. So you're trading guys who could become one and has probably a sub 50% chance of becoming an MLB regular for a pitcher who will slot into the middle of your rotation and could potentially be, a Cy Young vote getter. He finished 7th in the Cy Young voting in 2022, and that was on his diminished velocity. So ultimately, I would feel really good about this. Even the final piece that I'm adding on into this trade is Luis Gil, and that's a guy that Yankee fans like. This is a guy who has excellent stuff, but he's just probably not going to be a starting pitcher in this league. The injury concerns have probably limited his ceiling from just a guy who could be a back-end starter if he has a semblance of command. kind of a guy like Freddie Peralta, who not great command of the zone, but has excellent stuff and kind of just overpower hitters. It's probably dropped that ceiling from that to a guy who's a really good reliever. And I do think he'll end up becoming a really good reliever. Obviously, they have success with guys in the bullpen. A guy that they actually took from our organization, the Rule 5 draft, that they turned into a high-leverage reliever was Trevor Stephan, who we saw in the postseason for a little bit in 2022. But ultimately, I just don't think the New York Yankees are going to be able to go out and acquire an impact starting pitcher without giving up pieces that hurt them. And I think that Everson Pereira, Luis Gil, and Edmanuel Tejada is an extremely competitive offer. I think that you're giving the Guardians a lot of the things they need. You get a major league ready pitcher that can slide into the back end of your rotation if he develops well, or more realistically ends up in your bullpen. A guy like Everson Pereira who slots into your outfield conversation, and then a guy like Edmanuel Tejada who could become a pretty good infield prospect for them. And either A, they trade him down the road, or B, he flourishes in single A and he climbs his way to high A by the end of the year, ends up in the double A conversation by 2024, and is a major leaguer in 2025 or 2026. Ultimately, I just don't think that the New York Yankees are in a position where they can cling on to prospects that they've done a good job of developing, or they've done a good job of creating and viewing them as the guys who are going to put them over the hump. Everson Pereira is not putting the Yankees over the hump this year, most likely. Unless the Yankees, suffer a myriad of injuries and have to start him, they're likely not going to see a lot of him this upcoming season. As for Luis Gil, it's a question of whether he'll even open the season in the Yankee bullpen or not. And then for Edmanuel Tejada, his potential MLB impact is, potentially even half a decade away, right? Like, this is a guy who just turned 19 years old. He'll be 24 years old in 5 years, right? Like, we don't know if he's going to be, ready by then. We don't know if he'll ever be ready. And I'm fine trading that upside away for a guy like Shane Bieber, who I think the Yankees could get more out of, who has an established relationship with Matt Blake, who has a track record of MLB success. If we're looking at the profile and the picture that Shane Bieber has been in his major league career, even this past season when he struggled and when, his strikeout rate was a career low, and when his ERA was the worst it's been since 2018, his rookie season, he still had a 3.80 ERA, that's a 91 ERA minus. He still had a 3.87 FIP, that's a 92 FIP minus, a 3.96 xFIP, that's a 92 xFIP minus. He's preventing runs, and he has pretty good underlying metrics still. He gets ground balls. The breaking balls are really good. I think that relying on them more and being able to go to his curveball or his slider more will certainly allow him to get more swings and misses and get them back. I like his four-seam fastball in terms of shape. I think it's a great called strike pitch. I think, working at driveline over the winter could potentially help him get some of his velocity back. The cutter was a pitch that was a really good pitch for him in 2022, was not as good for him in 2023. I do wonder if the New York Yankees potentially try to do something there where, maybe they go out and say, hey, all right, we're going to tweak your cutter, or we're going to cut the usage of your cutter, or we're going to better blend it with your secondaries, whatever it may be. But, ultimately, this is a pitcher who the Yankees could desperately need in the middle of the rotation. Is it going to cost them an arm and a leg? It's like they're trading guys who are, the top of the top in their organization. It's like they're parting ways with Roderick Arias, or Spencer Jones, or Chase Hampton, or Jason Dominguez, or anyone of that sort. Tejada's probably the best prospect they're giving up here. You could argue Pereira has the most present MLB value, and you could also argue that Luis Gil potentially has the most MLB value. All of these players have MILB options remaining for the 2024 season as well. They do not have to be open the season, I guess, on the major league roster and on the opening day roster. And I think that's huge for the Cleveland Guardians. You don't want to force yourself to have to carry players who, one of them is coming off Tommy John surgery. Another, was just downright awful in the major league debut. And obviously Tejada is not close to major league ready. So you don't want to have to 40-man roster a guy and potentially lose them in the Rule 5 draft. When they're not close to major league ready. So there's a lot to really like for Cleveland here. I think this is a package that gets a deal done. I don't think this is just a conversation starter. I think this is a deal where you're like, all right, Cleveland, this is what we're going to offer. And if they say they want a lot more, I think you just look elsewhere, right? If they say no to a package like that, you just kind of have to look elsewhere. Or maybe, you find, maybe they prefer a guy like Yoendrys Gomez to Luis Gil. I would make that swap. Maybe they prefer Clayton Beeter to Luis Gil. Again, I would make that swap. But if they're going, hey, we don't want Tejada, we want Arias, that's when you say no. If they go like, hey, we don't want Pereira, we want Jones, obviously you say no. And I don't think the Guardians are going to ask for Spencer Jones for Shane Bieber. I don't think they're going to fetch that type of return. But ultimately, it is still a conversation that, I think the Yankees are going to have with the Guardians, with many other teams. They're obviously interested in guys like Dylan Cease. For the White Sox, they're interested in a myriad of Miami Marlin pitchers. I think Jesus Luzardo is obviously the guy you look at and say that's their best healthy pitcher, and that's the guy that you want to go out and get. But maybe they go out and go, get Edward Cabrera and potentially do so at a lower price than other trade options. There are also probably interested or at least kicking tires on Corbin Burns. I don't imagine that gets done before the season. I think it will remain a Milwaukee Brewer throughout the winter. But with that being said, let us know what you guys think in the comment section below. Tell us if you guys would make this trade for Shane Bieber or not. We'd love to hear you guys' opinions and perspectives. And with that being said, I'm Ryan from Fireside Yankees. You guys can check out our other social medias again on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and of course this YouTube page. And of course, you guys can check out EmpireSportsMedia.com for all your favorite New York sports content. It's all written content. It's great stuff, and we greatly recommend that you guys check it out. You guys can follow my personal Twitter account. It's at Ryan Garcia ESM. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out.